Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast. I'm Andeea, a licensed addiction counselor, and along with my co-host, Laura Kissmann, a quantum nutritionist, we will be inviting expert scientists, clinicians, survivors, and thrivers to distill their pearls of wisdom attained from applying quantum biology to their fields of research and everyday lives. Our goal is to bring you easy to understand principles and practices about the study of light, water, and magnetism so you can take your health into your own hands. When it comes to light, we often think sunshine first, but it is equally important to honor the darkness. We talk a lot about avoiding artificial blue light at night on this podcast, and that means protecting ourselves from blue and green light after sunset. This sets us up for that melatonin release and quality restorative sleep. This is why Laura and I wear VivaRays. Unlike typical blue blockers, they design glasses with circadian biology in mind. It is our go-to source for protecting our circadian rhythms. You can use the code QUANTUMHEALTHY for a discount. Link is in the show notes. Welcome to the Quantum Healthy podcast, everyone. Today we have a very special guest. Roudy from VivaRays is here with us. So I'm going to introduce you, Roudy, really quick. But I just want to thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's a deep pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. Roudy is an engineer. If you're not familiar with Roudy Nassif, he is an engineer and an advocate for circadian health. He's the founder of VivaRays, which I'm sporting today and do on most days. They specialize in creating circadian light harmonizing glasses that filter harmful artificial light, thus aligning our internal clocks and with the natural rhythms of the sun. And all their lenses are based in science, which I love, and their frames are eco-friendly and biodegradable, which I've loved from the start. I actually found these, I couldn't even believe that they were biodegradable. It was wonderful, and they are definitely one of a kind. And Roudy and I also, we have a common diagnosis of ADHD, and he's going to share that today in his story. But we would love for you to just start with your story, Roudy, and share how you ended up finding quantum biology.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll take you back with me to a very interesting moment in my life. It's 1 a.m., March 2017. I'm laying down in bed next to my former partner in our dark basement in Canada, scrolling through my phone. The blue light is shining on my face, and my eyes are squinting and burning, and I'm feeling drained mentally and physically. But I'm wired and I can't stop scrolling. Suddenly, a video popped up on my feed. I almost skipped it, but then I clicked. It said, "Artificial light is killing us." And here I am squeezing my brain, barely understanding what Dr. Jack Kruse is saying. But then I wake up the second day, and there's this one sentence that keeps echoing in my mind: "You can't get healthy in the same light environment that made you sick." And I was like, wow. I paused and I asked myself, could this be the reason for everything I've been going through? The lack of energy, the constant fatigue, the depression? Could this be it? And from that moment on, and for the past 7 years, I've been studying the light problem extensively. And as you mentioned, I founded VivaRays to solve this problem.
Yeah.
And throughout those 7 years, I realized that the quality of our life is entirely dependent on the quality of light that is entering our eyes. And the light topic has a lot more nuance than simply avoiding screens 1 hour before bedtime or the generic advice of wearing cheap blue blockers to protect your eyes. It's a lot more nuanced than this. And before we dive into the nuances, I wanted to share a little bit more about what got me to this moment. So as a child, I grew up in Lebanon in the Middle East. And as you mentioned, Andy, I was the definition of ADHD kid who can't focus. At least that definition came from my teachers. And the classroom left me really drained. I hated being in the classroom. And it had always felt like I'm in a prison cell. And my only escape from the prison was becoming a troublemaker. I literally did crazy things. I would throw an apple on the on the board next to where my teacher is writing. And one day we were walking back from recess to church, just like soldiers. I hated that. And I strategically positioned a very powerful firecracker in the trash can. And I will leave the rest for your imagination. Essentially, by the time I was 17, I was literally asked to leave 7 different schools. My parents were really struggling to find a school that would accept me because I had the connotation of like being a crazy kid. And in retrospect, this is like funny, but I always wanted to leave the classroom to be outside. And now I know, oh well, yeah, it's because it's because of the light. And as I got older, I turned into a night owl, and I would stay up late every night until 2 or 3 a.m. And I would wake up constantly feeling tired, low on energy, and extremely unmotivated all day long. And somehow I managed to make it to engineering school. I I confess I loved math and physics. Like I was obsessed with that. But that's the only thing I loved. I loved math and physics.
okay.
And at that time, like people looked at me and they said like, "Oh, how wonderful. You look like young, muscular, successful engineer." But on the inside, I was drowning. I lost my health, I lost my job, and I lost my sense of purpose. And no matter what I tried, martial arts, biomechanics, even climbing freezing mountains with Wim Hof in shorts at minus 20 degrees, nothing seemed to last. And I tried every diet imaginable. Literally, I was like the person who tried every diet. And I cut on sugar and processed food, and nothing really shifted for me. And then I became a vegan, and that made things worse. So I turned into a keto and then carnivore and then ancestral diet. And I was taking all the best adaptogens and supplements for mitochondrial health, sleep, and brain function. But still, I felt the same. So I decided to leave my career and travel to Canada on a tourist visa to start a fresh new beginning. And 3 months in, here I am with my former partner in our dark basement in Canada, that same place where I watched that video about artificial lighting. Now, the interesting thing is that was like the most challenging period ever of my life because that's when I turned suicidal depressive. And during that time, it was like the first time ever where I'm living with a partner all the time. And I was also experiencing the cultural shock of moving from Lebanon to Canada. And my partner was super busy studying and working. But me, I couldn't work because I was on a tourist visa. I also, by the way, barely spoken any English at that point. And I was mopping around all day doing nothing. And by the time evening came, my strategy to numb the pain was to smoke cannabis. And I'd be high and basking out in artificial lights. And I'd get like a sudden burst of energy, burst of dopamine. And in that moment, I'll start studying different health topics, psychology, mental health, really convinced within that I would want to change the whole world and change myself. But then I'll wake up every morning literally with zero energy and motivation, completely depressed, miserable, and having forgotten everything that I have studied the night before.
Blue light hangover.
Absolutely. Blue light hangover. This is a great description to it, actually. It's like
Never heard that.
not only a blue light hangover, it's like you first get that blue light excitement where you fall into the illusion of wanting to do things, but then you wake up with a hangover, completely paralyzed. So my partner was really concerned about my situation. So she comes to me with an unexpected surprise and she says, "Roudy, out of nowhere, pack your stuff. We're going to volunteer on an organic farm in northern Quebec." And I look at her, literally lines of worries appear on my front. My face turns yellow pale. And I'm thinking internally to myself, going to an organic farm? Like how is this going to help me? Like the craziest idea I heard. But then here we are. I can't argue with my partner. So we're like in the car driving for 7 hours, and the car is like bouncing on this dirt road, and the lights of the cities are like disappearing slowly, fading away in the background. And we arrived to this farm in Quebec. It was late at night. There's no electricity, no artificial light, just open, pristine skies. And I was like, wow, what is that? So we literally set up our tent under the twinkling stars. And the only source of light that we were ever exposed to after the sunset was coming from the fire flickering in front of us. So I remember that day very well. It was day one on the farm, May 2017. I wake up feeling exhausted. My body is super heavy. I don't want to be outside. I don't want to be around people. It's like so hard. Then by day three, something extremely miraculous happens. I wake up with no alarm clock. And for the first time in my life, I feel like a surge of sustainable energy in my body. I couldn't recognize myself. Who am I? I say to myself. My body feels alive, completely rested, and overflowing with joy. I look at my partner and I see her for as if I'm seeing her for the first time. I couldn't help but smile. I'm like, wow, this is new. This is different. I step out of the tent and the world around me is glowing with the magical light of the dawn. The birds are singing. They have they have been singing forever, but I've never heard them. And for me, hearing them in that moment was absolutely mesmerizing. I was like, wow, like literally like a little kid, like what is happening? I feel like deep sense of connectedness with all things. Like sometimes people who take mushrooms or go on an ayahuasca journey, they describe a similar feeling.
I
For
was
me,
just gonna say,
I was like
you sound
literally
like
on
you're
I was
describing
like
mushrooms.
literally on an ayahuasca journey without taking ayahuasca in this moment. And the fascinating thing is like the night owl in me, like that stubborn night owl who always said, no, I can't, like that's me. I start falling asleep shortly after the sunset naturally. Like I didn't make any effort. I didn't even need to argue with my past self about the topic. And I think like one of the most fascinating moments on the which I think you're gonna connect really well with this. Like few weeks in, this morning I was like doing what I have been doing every day. I'm crouched over the ground, weeding the crops, and then the farmer walks over to me, and he places his hand on my shoulder, and he says like he looks into my eyes like, and he says, "Wow, Roudy, like what a powerful focus you got. Like out of all the volunteers that came here, I've never seen anybody who has that level of focus that you have." And yeah, this moment, like it cracks me wide open. Like I went into a deep moment of silence, and like time stopped, right? Like I was like, what? And then I realized like everything I thought to be wrong with me, my ADHD, my depression, my chronic fatigue, it wasn't about me. And it was my light environment. I mean, isn't this fascinating? I'm still fascinated up to this day.
Yeah.
And the crazy part is like you wouldn't believe what happened next. I was in disbelief actually. And I returned back to the city, and within a matter of few weeks, it all comes crashing back at me. The night owl tendencies, the exhaustion, the fog, the depression. And I'm like, okay, stop. I realized I need to go deeper, and I made a commitment. I'm like, I turned into a mad scientist, literally. And the only difference between me and other scientists is that my laboratory became the farm. And for over 3 to 4 years, I kept going back between the city and the farms, obsessing, constantly documenting every shift in my energy, in my sleep, in my mood. I was living with indigenous people up north. Those are the ones who lived in complete alignment with nature's light. And I took the time to dive into the research, devouring every book, every study I could find on the science of light. And it was during that time that I learned about blue light blocking glasses. And I purchased the first 3 clear blue light blocking glasses that I was super excited about, because I thought to myself, I remember grabbing my sister and my former partner. I said, I cracked the code for the light problem. And I was so embarrassed because no magic, nothing happened.
We all did it too.
And essentially I kept trying all these different brands, yellow lenses, orange lenses, red lenses. And the fascinating part is it wasn't until I tried this extremely ugly safety glasses called, I forgot the name. I forgot the exact name of the brand. Oh, I think it's DeWalt. Yeah. They, yes, they were like clunky and absolutely hideous. Yes, they look
UVEX?
those are different. I tried the UVEX, but they weren't as effective. But the DeWalt, they were like clunky and absolutely hideous, super ugly. But somehow they worked. And how did I know they worked? Is because I could feel that the quality of my sleep in the city was still pretty good. So in this moment, as an engineer, I had 1,000 questions in my head. I was like, okay, why is it that all these different brands, whether it was clear, yellow, orange, like why is it that they didn't work? And what is it that made DeWalt somehow more effective? And is there room for improvement? So these questions led me to buy a spectrocolorimeter to measure what the lenses were doing. And what I saw was absolutely shocking because all of the lenses that I have tried personally, it turns out that they did not do what they advertised to do. And in this moment, okay, I could see why they weren't working. And I could see why the DeWalt was somehow more effective. And I could identify a massive room for improvement. So that's when I met an optical engineer in Florida who was very skeptical yet extremely intrigued about my stories and about what I was sharing with him. So he agreed to help me, and we went through countless trial and error trying to perfect the right melanin pigmentation dye that could do what we wanted it to do, which is essentially filter out artificial light in a very specific way at different times of the day. And yeah, that was a fun part. I was in my garage wearing gloves, face mask, hunched over, tinting glasses from morning till night. And after 9 months of failing over and over and over again, it was the first pair of circadian lenses that actually did what I wanted it to do. So I was extremely excited. And I realized, and you probably realized this, that all of my friends, all of my family, they had a light problem. So I decided to make 30 pairs and I would hand them over and I would share with them 7 steps to harnessing the power of light, which I could share on this podcast. I think they would be very useful. And my mind was blown away because every single time they were able to reverse their issues once they fixed their light problem. Like I'm talking about like my mom struggling with insomnia for over 8 years, starting to sleep 8 hours every single night after she fixed her light problem. My former partner, she struggled with extremely intense headaches. Her headaches disappeared, and even her menstrual pain disappeared. My sister, who struggled with acne and chronic fatigue, is now one of the most energetic entrepreneurs that I know, and she has such a glowing skin that oftentimes people ask her like, "What do you do? Like, like what kind of qigong exercises do you do for your skin?" So in that moment, I realized, oh wow, okay, that wasn't only like a personal transformation; it was literally transforming the life of others, and that's what led me to start VivaRays with my sister Joy, who actually had to really convince me about the idea of starting a business because I had zero intention to do that. But now, to be honest, few years in, I'm more convinced than ever before because I could see that all of us in this modern world, we have a light problem, a massive one. And realizing this, I felt a deep sense of responsibility and purpose within myself to leave the farm and then to ignite a movement of a light revolution, literally, with one goal. Actually, yesterday, as an organization, we were discussing our goal, and like the person who was facilitating the meeting, he's like, "Tell me, Rudy, like, what's your goal? How many glasses do you want to sell?" I'm like, "I don't care, dude, how many glasses I'm gonna sell. Like, my goal is how many people I'm going to help watch the sunrise, the sunset, and implement the light steps every single day. I care less if they buy the glasses, but they end up not doing the right thing. So our goal literally for 2030 is to help 1 million person to live in sync with nature's light.
An awesome goal. That's your story was so bright and colorful. You're a great storyteller, Rudy. I was right there with you, saw everything because of the way you described it. So thank
Yes,
you. for doing
For
that.
for the Canadians, could you tell us where in Quebec? Because I actually lived in northern Quebec. I'm just curious, whereabouts?
It's well, I the first farm I went to was in a town, in a very small town called De La Paix. I don't know if you heard of it. And
No.
and essentially afterwards I did another amazing experience in northern Ontario. And then from that point I went to BC and I never came back from BC. So all
Yes.
of my other experiences were in British Columbia in the mountains.
I think you lived in Kelowna. Is that right?
I lived in Nelson
Oh, in
before
Nelson. Okay.
before I moved to Mexico. Yes.
Right. Now, I've seen one of your most inspiring posts was you going into a cold river, and it was the way that it wasn't just going in, it was when you left, and you just walked calmly back, completely like barefoot, and you were just talking, and I remember I've done the Wim Hof course, and I dip weekly in the river, and I know how hard it is. It's the hardest way to dip. It's not in a sauna and then, finishing, coming out and going to sauna. So that to me was one of the most inspiring posts. But I could see how you were, again, that's another thing that you were trying, right? To help your health and like
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I did realize that at first when I came to Canada, I thought to myself, well, that's hell. I hate the winter. I hate everything about it. I was continuously like in this dark and cold basement all day long, feeling really stuck and purposeless.
Mhm.
And my only way to raise my dopamine and feel happy was to smoke cannabis and again scroll on my phone. And throughout that time, I thought the winter is torturous. Like, why does it exist from the first place? And it was around that same time also when I turned vegan also. And honestly, the moment I turned vegan, it was a purposeful moment for me because it came after a deep realization of how the food industry is completely messed up and what we humans are doing to the animals, because we're not meant to abuse and have a relationship with the animals that is based on taking. And I couldn't see that. So my first step was going vegan, but it wasn't until later when I went and lived with indigenous people up north is when I established a new relationship with not only the light and darkness, but also with the seasons, but also with the land and the animals.
Mhm.
And only then I realized that the winter is equally as purposeful as the summer. In fact, they give what one is born from the other, and we need both of them equally. Just like light and darkness are born from each other, and we need both of them equally. And in that moment, I do remember that moment very well when I went I went hunting with some indigenous people, and and at that point I was still a vegan, and it was my first time ever going hunting, and I could see how these people operated. But beyond hunting, also they had their animals that they have taken care of throughout the whole year. And what was most striking is that the person where I was living, he had the cows, but not only he had the cows, he knew every cow and he knew their names and their personalities and what they prefer and what they like. And he's living he lives all his day giving from himself to the cows. And I could see also that love relationship of the cows happily re-giving back from themselves. And that is balance and love, which is ingrained in every aspect of nature. But as humans, all of our problems and all of our issues, all of our chronic diseases arise from one place, is the absence of balance, the absence of this balanced rhythmic interchange between in every transaction, really, whether it's a transaction in nature or with another human being or with ourselves. And essentially, we've strayed away so far from that balance that we designed environments that literally make us sick, because those environments are not designed on the basis of nature's rhythm and the symmetry and the balance that we see in the spectrum of the sun. We put ourselves in boxes under LED lights that emit a very odd frequencies that we've never evolved around, and that is lacking the interchanging balance between polar opposites. It goes back to the same story, like the interchanging balance between polar opposite is either present or not present, whether it's through sound or through light or through food. If you look at anything in nature, the purposefulness of it is dependent on the interchanging between polar opposites. Even when we think about the co-creation of man and woman, and the continuity of our species is dependent on that man-woman balance coming together and giving all of ourselves to each other, so that way we live a purposeful life, that and a loving life. But it's also similar in every aspect, whether it's the food that we eat, has it been grown with love, and has the people who grown it given from themselves to the earth so that the earth re-gives back equally? And if not, then it's a food that was grown in an abusive way with a mindset of taking from the earth and never giving back, and that creates toxins in the body. But the same story goes to light and sound and every creative thing that we bring into our environment.
Yeah, it reminds me of the water story too, honestly, because we imprint, right? But yeah,
Mhm.
even in the law of opposites is one of the laws of the universe, right? And that's exactly what you're talking about.
Absolutely, yes. And even with the water, as you mentioned, because every thought that we think and every feeling that we feel is literally imprinted in that water, and it's determining every aspect of our health and well-being. Like, when our thinking is out of balance, it literally floods our body with enormous amount of toxins. When we act out of balance to another human being, in that moment the body is flooded with enormous amount of toxins, and it doesn't matter how many biohacks in this moment you're doing and how healthy your food is. When you step out of the law of balance, there's a consequence, because I think like this universe, and particularly we humans, we have a free right to choose, and we may act the way we will to act. However, we can never control the reaction for our actions. This is inviolate law. The reaction is always in opposition and equal to our action, and it's going to determine our destiny. So regardless of the fact that we have the free will to act, yes, we do. But if we act in balance, we bless ourselves and everybody around us. And the moment we act out of balance, the equal and opposite reaction will smite us. And there's no escaping from that.
I have 3 words coming up: spiritual light engineer. Because I know you have had quite a spiritual journey, and I believe that you talked to us when you instructed us way back when about meditating and making the time, and how many ideas and downloads you've had. Can you share a little bit about your spiritual meditative journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are spiritual beings and in a body, which is the most odd thing ever. And as we live in this existence, we're continuously navigating two things: the visible universe of motion, which we call matter, but also the invisible universe of cause, which is the spiritual universe. And our senses are only conditioned to respond to motion. They never respond to stillness. And we can never fathom the power of stillness and the spirit. But in a sense, all motion springs from stillness and come back to it. So if you think about a musical instrument, when you hear like a master playing, you may be deceived by thinking that the power is in the sound, but the reality is that the power is in the silence from which the sound is springing. And the moment the master plucked the guitar, the sound vibration emerge from the silence and are swallowed back by it.
Yeah.
So sound is temporary, silence is eternal. Our body is temporary because it's a state of motion. And that's what the light wave universe is: states of motion, really. Whether we call it sound or light or whatever we want to call it, it's a wave in motion. And waves in motion are temporarily. wave in motions, they borrow their power from stillness. Stillness is eternal, and our soul is still. That's why our senses cannot react to our soul. But we can know. I could know your soul, Laura, but I cannot see it. But I cannot know your body, but I can see your body. But the issue is that as humans, we're living in those two universes simultaneously. The universe of motion, which our senses react to, and which most people think that it's reality, but also the universe of stillness, which is the spiritual universe, which is actually cause and actually reality. And everything in the physical universe of motion is a manifestation of reality, is a manifestation of cause. So again, think of sound and silence. The sound spring from silence and come back to it. The sound is a manifestation of the reality of silence, and silence is eternal. But also, a very good example is a seesaw, for instance. If you're looking at a seesaw moving, your senses react to the motion of the seesaw, and you are deceived into thinking that the power is in the lever. But where is the power? The power is in the fulcrum.
Oh,
And
of course.
the fulcrum is not moving, but the lever is borrowing its power from that 0 point of stillness. So when we talk about the spirit or about meditation, what we're really talking about is meditation is a communion between our soul and universal soul. It's a desire to be alone with God. It's a desire to look inward and to know. And I think like many of the masters from different religions, whether it was Muhammad or Jesus or the Bhagavad Gita, everybody said, look within and know. Everybody said, be still and know. Now, what did they mean by this? What does it mean to be still and know? It means to shut down the door of the senses and to look inwardly towards the light of the soul. And that's the only place where we acquire knowledge. The senses can only acquire information. In fact, everything I'm saying right now is merely information that is vibrating the listener's senses. And the listener will imprint this information upon their brain just like a phonograph would. It's like it's no difference than how the phonograph work. However, everything that I'm saying will move and resonate deeply within one person who is already in tune with their inner knowing. So that knowledge is already in them. And perhaps I could be inspiring the awakening or the recognition or the remembrance of what already exists within. So that is meditation to me. It's to look inwardly and to know, to talk to God and to know God in meditation, in the silence. And we like there's a bad connotation to the word God because of the abusive use of the word from many religions who have painted the image of a God of wrath and fear and punishment. But that is not the God of light, and that is not the God of love. And the God of light and love is within everything, centering everything, and without everything as well, controlling everything. And so whether it's animals, plants, or humans, we are all centered by God within, and we are all gods to the extent of our awareness and our knowing of that God within. And to the extent of our desire to express that God within, we can express our genius or not. And I do believe that mediocrity, for instance, is self-inflicted and genius is self-bestowed. And genius is a manifestation of the desire in us to know our oneness with God and to co-create with God, and to know that God will not work for us, but will work with us. So we must give from ourselves fully, and we must take the first action in love. And God or the universe, whatever you want to call it, will always meet us halfway, and will never give us more than what we are able to give from ourselves, because that is universal law.
Wow.
Ooh, powerful. I'm taking notes,
powerful.
taking 4 pages of notes like crazy.
I know, I saw you write like a crazy woman there, Laura.
I know. I can't wait to read it all back. It's be my
Well,
bedtime reading today.
I know we need to get to a couple things as we close here, so I just want to be really mindful of the time. So I want to thank you so much for all of that. That was anybody who listens to this is just going to be enlightened for sure. So, so beautiful. I always ask a signature question, and that question is, what does quantum healthy mean to you?
Yeah, simply put, I think quantum health is to be attuned to cause and effect and to that state of equilibrium and balance that we are born with and that we are endowed with for all our lives. And to have that subtle awareness of when we are stepping outside of that balance, whether it's in our relationship to nature or to the food that we eat or to the other human beings in our lives or to ourselves. And it's this subtle awareness and deep desire to maintain that rhythmic balance in every aspect of our life, what is going to manifest an optimal state of health, which we are born with. And we ourselves disrupt when we move away from the equilibrium of balance, whether it's through unbalanced actions in our environment, by putting ourselves in environments under junk LED lights that make us sick, or whether it's through abusing the earth and trying to produce food by breaking the law of balance and love with the earth, or whether by breaking that law of balance and love with our fellow human beings by trying to take from them wealth to acquire wealth instead of giving wealth to be wealthy. Because the only way we can be healthy and wealthy is by learning how to give wealth and health from ourselves.
Wow.
Roudy, we didn't get so much to talk about. We had so many blue light questions, but I know you wanted
To come back.
I
Happy
think
to
you
come
have to,
back.
because you have to come back and tell us the 7 stages or the 7 something.
The
you
7
mentioned.
steps for
Steps.
harnessing the power of light.
Okay, it's a date. We definitely, and we had other questions we never got to, but
we'll have episode with Roudy, everybody. So we
yes,
will all that fun stuff too.
can you tell us, like in 2 minutes, quickly about VivaRays? Just because we really didn't talk much. Just how wonderful is this company and why? Like we're both wearing. I guess we could share why we think it's so incredible. But just from your words, what's so special about VivaRays and these glasses?
Yeah, I think like what's special about VivaRays is that VivaRays wasn't born because one day I decided I want to make a business and sell a product. It was born from a desperate desire to solve the light problem and a profound inner desire to extend balance into people's life. So that's why like VivaRays is way beyond a product, and it's a way of life. It's a profound desire to again find balance with nature and to help every human being on earth to have the means to live a rhythmic life and to be in tune with nature's light and dark cycles. So that translated into a product. A product is always an extension of a soul's desire to achieve something. And the initial stages of this is being translated in the glasses that we came up with, which we have a very unique system called the 3-in-1 that combines daytime, evening, and nighttime into one frame. The daytime glasses harmonize the inflammatory frequency coming from the LEDs. And the goal of it is to make it more balanced and proportionate with its polar opposite, which in nature, synergistically, those colors come together. And as I mentioned, we're not supposed to get blue light in isolation from those other colors. So the daytime glasses help create that harmony by harmonizing this inflammatory frequency and making it more balanced and proportionate with the other frequencies. And then the evening and the nighttime lenses, they're strategically engineered to eliminate the frequencies that we're not supposed to see at night. And for example, the evening mimics the exact color temperature of the bonfire at 1700 kelvins. The nighttime eliminates all of the blue, 100% of the green, and decreases the brightness of light by 10 times, which is an absolutely important aspect that most people miss. Because bright light of any color at night disrupts our circadian clock and shifts our sleep in the wrong direction. So it's not only about eliminating blue and green light, it's also about making your environment dim. And the nighttime glasses is a great tool that help you to really decrease that brightness and make it more dim. Also, super exciting that we launched a technology for people who wear prescription glasses called the UV transmitting lenses. And
That's what
we wanted to solve the issue of the prescription glasses blocking 100% of UVA and UVB, which is absolutely terrible. And to add fuel to the fire, optometrists also add the blue light tinting to the lenses to block blue light. But essentially, this is not blocking the blue light that is coming from harmful sources like LEDs, but when you wear it outside, it's blocking that blue purple light that is coming from the sun, which is terrible. We need that blue purple light from the sun. So the 4-in-1 system allows you to absorb the UVA and UVB, 50 to 60% more absorption go through the lens, and 100% of blue purple still pass through the lens. And you'll have 3 clips to deal with artificial lights at different times of the day: daytime, evening, and nighttime. So yeah, for everybody, you could find us on VivaRays, www.com. I believe we do have a code, Laura. Do you have a
yeah,
discount?
for sure.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, we both have codes.
Also, I'd be more than happy to share a recent e-booklet that I've written that talks in depth about the 7 steps and the why behind each step. It also gives practical steps to how anybody could filter out artificial lights from their phones, from their screens, from their televisions, using different apps. And yeah, I also explain what most people don't realize is that blue light is not only coming from our phones and screens, it's also coming from the bulbs that we're using. And I suggest like some really cool practical solutions in that ebooklet.
Oh, that'd be fabulous. Thank you. Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we definitely want to honor your time because we know you're a busy man. This is I think our 3rd attempt to get you here. So it's my privilege to thank you, Roudy. First of all, for your vulnerability, for sharing all your, I think you call it your health odyssey. I've seen you written it that way. And we were riveted today. I can't wait for people to hear this episode because we were right with you on that farm and living your journey there. And just for teaching so many of us about blue light. I know you do a lot more of education. If people go to your website and you have wonderful blogs and ebooks. So yeah, everybody check that out. And you've also always been an advocate for healthy blue light because everybody wants to demonize all blue. And you said you really right from the start, corrected us and said, stop demonizing all blue light. And just for specializing in creating circadian light harmonizing glasses. We're both huge fans of your lenses. And yeah, for so many reasons I could go on and go on, but I'll save that. And I love that you've written this, but people just listening to you know that you say we all deserve to wake up every morning feeling vital, vibrant, and vivacious. And that's just your essence, Roudy. And I think a lot of us in the quantum health space that have been doing these practices for a while, that's how we feel. And that's why we're so passionate about getting this word out to people. And it's not just about the food, or the exercise, things like that. So, and just for today, we went a place we were not really planning, but boy, it was pretty special. And so just for inspiring a spiritual meditative practice and helping us understand why, and just, you talked so much about the balance and yeah, you've given us, it's very thought provoking. And finally, just on that vein, to thank you for bringing a spirituality into the quantum health space. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I am honored, and yeah, it's always a pleasure. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you for sticking around to the end of this podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, VivaRays, who allows for us to get this information to you. They offer top of the line blue blocking glasses, which, as we know, are critical for our health these days for blocking artificial light at night. Over 90% of our time is spent indoors under artificial lights, and this puts us all prone to circadian rhythm disruption. You can use the code QUANTUMHEALTHY for a discount. Link is in the show notes.
Thank you so much for listening to the Quantum Healthy podcast. We hope you found some value in this information. And if you feel inspired, please share it and leave us a 5-star review. This will help us reach so many more people. If you want to connect with Laura, you can find her at laurakissmanwellness.com and Andeea at andeearay.com. Links are below in the show notes. Now, go find some sunlight and embrace your own quantum healthy.